My name is Bianca, and I destroyed 3 lives before I turned 30. I feel no remorse. I married him purely for money. He was a rich, naive man, perfect for my plans. But I never imagined his brother would find out everything. He saw through me from day one. That suspicious look that haunted me at every family dinner. I needed to eliminate it from the equation, one way or another. What happened next was something I didn't expect. Betrayal, buried secrets, a brother obsessed with destroying me, and me in the middle of it all, calculating every move. Lying to the man I use as a husband. This is the story of how a cold and manipulative woman discovered that her greatest enemy can be her own uncontrolled ambition. Of how each lie leads you to a darker place. And how sometimes, the villain isn't who you think it is. You'll want to know how it ends. You'll want to know every detail of this story of obsession, manipulation, and revenge that happened here in Brazil. On the streets of São Paulo, in mansions that held sordid secrets. Stay with me. This is my truth. I always knew I would be someone. I grew up in a neighborhood where money didn't exist, where my mother worked 12 hours a day as a maid. I saw designer handbags, imported cars, women with expensive smiles. I decided I would be one of them. I wouldn't work to earn money. I would use what God gave me, my body, my intelligence, and a complete lack of feelings, which would be my most powerful weapon. At 23, I was a dancer at an exclusive club in São Paulo. It wasn't prostitution. I refused to use that word. It was strategy. Every man who touched me was a step. Every night in a businessman's apartment was a higher rung. I learned their weaknesses, their insecurities, their lies, and I learned to use everything against them. Then I met Rafael Mendez, heir to a fortune in construction, 30 years old, handsome in a way that women dream of. But he was weak, too shy for such a rich man. Perfect. When our eyes met at that party in a penthouse apartment in Morumbi, I had already bought and paid for it. 3 months later, we were engaged. 6 months later, we were married in a ceremony that cost the equivalent of what my mother would earn in 20 years. I was into the wealth, into the family, into the life I'd always wanted. But there was a problem. A man named Lucas, Rafael's brother, who from the first handshake looked at me as if he could see through my skin, as if he knew exactly who I was. A man who could destroy everything. My wedding was perfect. Perfect like a movie scene where you know something's going to go wrong, because nothing is ever that perfect. Rafael was by my side, in a white suit, swearing eternal love to a woman he didn't even really know. I kiss his lips and feel nothing. Absolutely nothing. My mother is among the guests, with that look of astonishment, as if she can't believe her daughter has become all that. She doesn't know the truth. For her, it was luck, destiny. I found a good man who loves me. If she knew, she would be ashamed. But I'm not ashamed. I never have been. Shame is a luxury that poor people can't afford. During the party, I see Lucas watching from afar. He doesn't dance, he doesn't drink, he just observes. His eyes meet mine repeatedly. He knows. I don't know how, but he knows. Maybe he saw the way I kiss Rafael without raising my hand to his face. Maybe he noticed that I didn't laugh at his worst moments, that my smile is a mask I put on and take off as needed. That night, in our hotel room, Rafael makes love to me as if it were the first time. He believes I'm pure, innocent, that I deserve a man who adores me. I let him think that. Pretending is my profession now. When he sleeps, I stay awake, staring at the white ceiling, thinking about money, how long it would take for me to gain access to his accounts. How, if something went wrong, I could get away with half of everything in a divorce. Lucas is the only one here who can see through my armor, and that makes him my most dangerous enemy. The first few months were dedicated to becoming the perfect wife. Food, sex, theatrical affection. Rafael deserved a Golden Globe for how convincing I was. I started attending family dinners as if I truly liked those people. I learned to talk about things that don't matter to me with the naturalness of someone who spends their whole life learning to lie. But Lucas never fell for my game. He would come to dinners and position himself so he could observe me. Once, I was telling a story about my childhood, something completely false, and our eyes met. He saw me. He literally saw me in that second. He knew it was all a lie. The next day, Lucas came looking for me. I found a note under our bedroom door. Just a few words. I met you, Bianca. And that's a problem. My heart raced. Not from fear, but from calculation. A man who knows who you really are can't stay alive, at least not in a way that could jeopardize your plans. I had 2 options. The first was to try to seduce him, to make him fall for my charms like everyone else. The second was more creative and much more dangerous. I decided I would seduce Lucas. Not with my body but with the truth. A carefully chosen truth, of course. I went to his apartment in the Villa Mariana neighborhood, a penthouse overlooking the city. He greeted me as if he had been expecting me, which was irritating. Men like Lucas are always one step ahead. I sat down in front of him and did something I rarely do. I was honest. I told him about my mother, about poverty, about my decision not to accept that life. I didn't tell him that I had slept with dozens of men to get where I was. That would be too much. I let him reach the conclusions I wanted him to reach. A man who believes he knows all your secrets is a man who can be controlled. Lucas listened to me in silence. When I finished, he asked, "Do you really love him?" I turned my face to the window and took a deep breath. He wants to know if I am capable of love. The answer is no. But that wasn't something I could say. So I lied. I said that Raphael was important to me. Perhaps I was incapable of loving the way normal people love, but there was something there. A sense of care. A sense of responsibility. Lucas didn't believe it. But he stopped investigating. Or pretended to stop. And this is where things start to get complicated. 3 months later, Raphael comes home with a business proposal. He wants to expand the family business to Miami. That means 2 years away. 2 years where I could have unlimited access to the accounts, the documents, everything. I'm gentle with the news. I say I fully support him, that I'll be by his side. He wants me to go with him. I politely refuse. I say my mother is getting old, and I need to take care of her. It's an elegant lie. He believes it because people believe what they want to believe. But Lucas shows up at my house a week later. Raphael was in a meeting with lawyers. We're alone in the kitchen and he puts a glass of juice in front of me as if he's prepared the whole attack. "My brother is a good man," he says. "He didn't deserve you. I won't let you destroy him." I felt a shiver that wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. Lucas had finally dropped his polite mask. Now we were two people looking at each other, knowing exactly what we were doing. The war was beginning. After that day, I realized Lucas wasn't my only enemy. He was just the most obvious one. Raphael's mother, Donna Regina, started asking questions. Why didn't Bianca want children? Why was she so cold towards Raphael at times? A mother always knows when something isn't right. But Donna Regina was weak too. I used her fear against her. I told her I was trying to get pregnant but was infertile. I asked her to keep it a secret so as not to hurt Raphael. She cried for me. She hugged me. Manipulating mothers is the easiest manipulation in the world. They want to believe their children have found the right person. They don't want to accept that they've been deceived. Meanwhile, Raphael was becoming increasingly distant. Perhaps he had begun to notice something. Perhaps Lucas was planting seeds of doubt in his mind. One night, he asks if I love him. I look into his eyes and see the weak man I always knew he was. I say yes, that I love him. He wants it to be true so desperately that he makes me believe him. That night, he makes love to me as if it were forever. Time passes strangely when you're living a lie. The days are all the same. Raphael travels to Miami and comes back. I feign joy each time he returns. Lucas would come to dinners, and his eyes would follow me. I knew he was gathering evidence. A man obsessed with destroying someone doesn't stop until he succeeds. I started being more careful. I deleted messages from my phone. I destroyed documents that could incriminate me. But there was something I couldn't control. The other women. I had a friend, Carolina, who worked with me at the club years ago. She knew who I really was. One day she contacts me asking for money. She needs to pay off a gambling debt. I send a transfer. She asks for more. Then more. Carolina became a parasite, and I knew I had to get rid of her. It's not easy to eliminate a friend. It's not easy because you have to pretend you're not. I invited her to lunch at a restaurant and offered her something more valuable than money. Information. I told her a lying secret about Lucas, that he was a man obsessed with money, that he was stealing from his family. Carolina, who is a first-rate gossip, passed the information on. Within a week, the story had reached Raphael's ears. Suspicion began to grow between the brothers. And I was just getting started. Raphael starts questioning Lucas about business. There are tense debates in the company office. There's no real problem, of course. But there's distrust. There's an erosion of trust, which is more valuable than any amount of money. I watch it all from afar, like a director observing her actors following the script I wrote. Lucas tries to talk to Raphael. Tries to tell him that something is wrong. That he's being manipulated. Raphael doesn't believe him. Why would he believe his brother instead of his wife? I sleep next to him every night. We wake up together. I have his trust in a way Lucas can only dream of having. But then Lucas does something I didn't expect. He hires a private investigator. He finds out everything. My past, at the club, my previous relationships, my lies. He has it all documented. All in a report that could destroy my marriage in 5 minutes. When I find out, I almost panic. Almost, because people like me don't panic. We calculate. Lucas arranges a meeting with Raphael to present his findings. I intervene. I tell Raphael that Lucas is obsessed with me. That he's a bitter man because he's never found a woman who loves him. I plant the idea that Lucas is making up stories because he's jealous. That his obsession is unhealthy. Raphael begins to question. Doubt grows in his chest like a tumor. When Lucas shows up with his papers, his photos, all his evidence, Raphael doesn't want to see it. He calls Lucas a liar. Envious. Someone who never understood that some people deserve to be happy. Lucas leaves the house with the report in his hands, defeated. But he's not the type of man who gives up. And this is where I made my first real mistake. I underestimated a man's capacity to love someone when that person is his brother. Lucas loves Raphael. He loves him in a way I could never understand. And that makes him even more dangerous. Everything falls apart when Raphael finds a note Lucas left for me. A note Lucas supposedly destroyed. I never destroyed it. I kept it safe. The note said it all. I met you, Bianca. And I'm going to prove to Raphael who you are. Raphael reads that note and something changes in his eyes. He starts asking questions. Why would Lucas know all this about me? Why would he be investigating? I create a perfect story. I say Lucas was obsessed with hurting me. That he tried to kiss me once and that when I refused, he started plotting against me. That he invented everything because I'm prettier than any woman he could ever have. Raphael wants to believe it. But now there's a seed of doubt. And seeds of doubt become trees that fall on your head. My mother called during a crisis. Raphael was yelling at me. He was yelling that maybe Lucas was right. That maybe I was just a fling who used him. I felt something strange at that moment. An emotion I couldn't name. It wasn't guilt. It would never be guilt. But it was something like ... anxiety. As if the game was getting out of my control. I spent the whole night reassuring Raphael. I told him stories. I cried when necessary. I reminded him of every moment we shared. Every trip, every gift, every time I faked pleasure to make him feel like a man. It worked. Raphael hugged me that night, as if he were saving me from sinking. But he still wanted to talk to Lucas. He wanted clarification. I had to stop it. Because if they were alone, if they could talk without my presence, maybe Raphael would hear the truth. And the truth is a dangerous thing. I called Lucas over to our house while Raphael was sleeping. He came because he thought he'd finally have the chance to confront me. The confrontation that followed was very different. I sat beside him on the living room sofa and did something I'd never done with anyone before. I made a deal. I told Lucas he was right. That he had lied. That he had used Raphael. That it was all manipulation. He was surprised. Perhaps he expected me to deny it or offer an excuse. But I offered the carefully chosen truth. I told him I loved Raphael. That I had learned to love. That even though it had all started as a lie, it had become something real. Lucas looked at me with something that seemed like pity. As if he could see exactly who I was. And then I said the words that changed everything. You're a very sad woman, Bianca. No one deserves this coldness. After that conversation, Lucas agreed to keep the secret. Not for Raphael's sake, not for our family's sake, but because he realized that destroying me would destroy Raphael too. And he loves his brother too much for that. The price of Lucas's silence was that he could come to our house. That he could be a part of our lives. That he could watch me as I learned to be human. But I would never learn. It was too late for that. For weeks, I watched Lucas watching me. Seeing every lie, every false gesture. One night, Raphael was sleeping and Lucas was in the kitchen. He asked me why I agreed to continue this charade. Why not just let him go? I placed a glass of wine in front of him and honestly replied that it was because I was afraid of being alone again. And maybe it was true. Or maybe it was just another lie I was telling myself. A strange dynamic began to develop between the three of them. Raphael was happy because he didn't know it. Lucas was miserable because he did. And I was in the middle. oscillating between the woman I pretended to be and the creature I truly was. Raphael wanted to have children. That conversation resurfaced. He wanted to leave a legacy. He wanted to leave something that would be ours. I said yes, that I would have his children, that we would be a real family. But that night, when he was next to me in bed, I felt a coldness that not even my lies could disguise. He noticed it. He asked if something was wrong. I lied. I always lie. But this time, he didn't completely believe me. There was something in his eyes that suggested he might have begun to see through my mask. 3 years had passed since our wedding. Raphael was 42 now and getting old. I was still 31. Lucas was close to us, always watching. He saw us as a responsibility, a cross he bore because he had to make sure Raphael wasn't completely destroyed. Donna Regina died, an aneurysm that no one saw coming. She knew the truth in the end, I believe. Mothers always know. But she chose to die protecting her son. Perhaps she knew that if she told Raphael, he would destroy himself, and she loved him too much to do that. During the funeral, Lucas and I met in an empty aisle. He told me he had cancer, that he had a few months to live, that he would leave without having saved his brother from me, and that this was the thing that would haunt him most after death. I felt something that could have been compassion. Or perhaps it was just the recognition that Lucas was the only person in this world who had truly known me. Raphael was devastated by his mother's death, and it was during this devastation that everything began to crumble. He discovered bank records showing transfers to Carolina. Transfers he never knew he had made, because I had made them in his name, using his accounts. There were also trips he didn't remember paying for. A second life I had secretly built with his money. When I confronted him, Raphael didn't scream. He remained silent. He just sat in the room and looked at me as if he saw a stranger wearing his wife's face. And perhaps that was the case. Perhaps the woman he loved had always been a stranger. I tried to explain. I tried to manipulate. I tried to cry. Nothing worked. Raphael just shook his head and repeated that he didn't know me, that he had never really known me. Lucas appeared when Raphael was broken. And this time, my enemy had become someone more important. He had become an ally. Raphael embraced him as if embracing the last piece of humanity that remained. And Lucas, even dying, put his arm around his brother as if he could protect him from the pain. For the first time since I met them, I saw Raphael look at Lucas with pure love, unconditionally, without distrust, and I realized I had lost. I had gained nothing. I had only built an empty life in a castle of lies that was now crumbling. Raphael filed for divorce. It was cold, legal paperwork. My lawyer was good, but not as good a friend as Lucas had been when he was healthy. I received an amount that would be generous to most women. But for me, who had dreamed of everything, it was just crumbs. Lucas died in the hospital 3 months later. Raphael was in his room when it happened. My ex-husband called to tell me. That's all. No hatred. No accusations. Just the fact that Lucas was dead and that something had ended. I didn't cry. I couldn't, but I felt a frightening emptiness. Lucas was the only person who truly knew me, and he was dead. I went to the funeral because it was the polite thing to do. Raphael didn't look at me. He just stood in front of his brother's coffin, like a man who had lost half his soul. Donna Regina was buried next to him. The two brothers were together again, but they would never speak again. With the divorce money, I did exactly what I had always planned. I bought an apartment in Miami. I built a new life under a new name. Other women have done the same thing. Other women with stories similar to mine. Coldness, calculation. Empty lives masked by material goals. I meet with them regularly. We talk about our husbands, about our manipulations, about how long we think we can keep going before everything falls apart. No one says the word curse, but everyone knows it exists. 2 years later, Raphael called. He wanted to talk. We met at a cafe on Palista Avenue. Raphael had aged a decade in the 2 years since our divorce. His eyes were empty. He told me he had tried to find love again, that he had failed, that the distrust I had learned to plant in his heart had sprouted into poisonous seeds that destroyed every relationship he tried to build. He said he didn't blame me, that he just wanted me to know that he had won, that he had conquered his entire life, only to discover that his entire life was worthless, that Lucas had been right all along, that I was a very sad woman, and that the sadness I spread was contagious. Now I'm here, in Miami, looking at the city lit up at night. I have money. I have beauty. I have freedom. I have everything a woman like me could want. But there's something I don't have. It's impossible to name. It's impossible to buy. Lucas and Raphael had it. That capacity to love someone, despite knowing who they really are. I destroyed that in both of them. And I discovered that destruction is easy. The hard thing is learning to live with what you've destroyed. So here I am. A 35-year-old woman who has achieved everything and discovered that it's all empty. Without remorse. Maybe a little. Without regret. Definitely. But with the feeling that there was a price for this freedom. A price that no one told me I would have to pay. A villainous woman doesn't go unpunished. She just takes longer to see them arrive. This is my story. A woman who thought she was too smart to be hurt. Who believed that with enough coldness she could manipulate anything. That she was wrong. Because the greatest winner is the one who can love someone despite knowing everything about them. And I never could. Which city in Brazil are you in right now? Leave it in the comments. Which story moved you the most? Comment. Because stories like this exist everywhere. Em São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Minas Gerais, Bahia. Do you know anyone like that? Someone who destroyed lives in the name of ambition. Tell me. Because this is the true story of real people. Names have been changed. But the scars remain.